We're live. Cool. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today is pretty exciting because I have Ashleigh VanHouten here. She does it all. I'm so excited for you guys to meet her. How's it going, Ashleigh?
Very good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. How are things in Canada? Are you guys hanging in there, man?
I mean, what rabbit hole do you want to go down right away?
Are gyms
Listen,
open?
where I am, gyms are not open.
Oof.
I'm in the biggest province in the country, so it's a lot of people to manage and keep track of, and I understand that. But with that said, it's been a very long year. This week, actually, our weather has really switched up, and it went from like, is it ever going to be nice out to like 80 degrees?
Oh, hell
So
yeah.
yeah, so the morale has improved significantly, and it means that I can just kind of move outside and be outside and do some outdoor workouts and stuff, and it's just very good for morale. But we've been moving slowly. Like there seems to be some light at the end of the tunnel. Things are moving now, and we'll see, where it goes over the next couple months. But at least it's summer, so
Yeah.
I've got that.
Thank God. It makes
Yeah,
a big difference if the sun comes
huge,
out. Cool.
huge.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank
And
you.
before we kind of dig into all of the fun we have planned, I'd love for you to just give a little bit more about your background. Like, how did you become, a podcaster, a strength coach, an entrepreneur? And fun fact, you were probably the first podcast I like consistently listened to, like back in Barbell Shrug days. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that
like
makes me so
this
happy.
is the
Thank you.
coolest thing ever that you're on my podcast. I'm like freaking out a little bit, but yeah, please give us your background.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Well, I mean, I'll try not to talk too long because I really don't have like a whole crazy light bulb origin story. It's really just been that I've always loved learning about health and muscles and strength and stuff like that. So I was doing it anyway. And at a certain point in my kind of professional career, I decided to kind of make the leap and combine the things I was good at professionally, the things I went to school for, which is communications and marketing and writing and things like that, and apply them to an actual topic that I cared about. Because up until that point, I had worked in like corporate environments, which were great. And, they pay you money and all that's fantastic. It just wasn't, when you're not passionate about it, it's not the same. And we could go down a whole rabbit hole about some people aren't necessarily meant to do their hobby or their passion for a living. And in my case, it's working out pretty well so far, knock on wood. But I just decided, like, I was at the time I had graduated like my master's degree in professional communications, and I was doing this corporate job in New York, and it was really long hours, and I had to like wear proper
Like
clothes, and I
business
just like,
professional. Yeah.
yeah, and I was just
Mm-mm.
like, okay, I see kind of where this is going. And I had been at that point, it was really sort of when things like CrossFit were just taking off, when things like paleo were starting to become a little bit more mainstream, but not really, and I was just like, okay, I'm learning all this stuff, I'm connecting with all these cool people. I feel like there's some work that I could do here that I would really enjoy. And so it really was kind of like a slow and consistent process of putting myself out there, being at the right place, networking, doing work for people, doing free work for people. And at one point, I had taken a course on publishing, and I connected with the editor of Paleo magazine. At the time, it was like the only publication doing a really good job in like ancestral health stuff. And I started writing for them, and that kind of continued, that relationships just sort of grew and blossomed, and I wrote more for them. I eventually took over their podcast, and then I eventually bought their podcast and turned it into my own. So I got my own at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's really kind of just continued to grow sort of from there. But it's sort of like a parallel to, and this is something I'm sure you talk about on the podcast a lot, but the health journey in general, it's sort of just like about being consistent about something you care about. Like I knew that this was something that I was interested in. So I just sort of consistently kept showing up and doing it and being there and working and being open to new opportunities and saying yes to things. And when things don't work, you pivot. And like, that's what you do with health. That's what you do in life. And that's kind of how I'm here talking to you now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually thought about it that way, but
Yeah.
I mean, it is just about, yeah, figuring out like what lights you up and then continuing to go that direction. Just like if you're trying a diet and you're like, I hate eating this way, you better pivot and try something different.
That's it. It's like, I think one of the biggest things, I don't know, I would imagine that probably a lot of your listeners are women. And I think that one of the things that we struggle with a lot is anytime there's a setback or we're unsure or things don't work anymore, it's like this failure that compounds because we feel like failures, or we feel like we did something wrong, or we beat ourselves up for something, when everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody is trying until it doesn't work anymore and then trying something different. And your coach or this like professional that you look up to, that you're paying a bunch of money, they're doing the exact same thing too. They're like, all right, let's give this a shot. And if that doesn't work, we'll try something else, you know? So
Yeah.
I think that we should all give ourselves a little bit of a break, and knowing that it's okay to pivot and change and switch directions and try new things. And but it's just the showing up. It's like the showing up and being consistent for yourself, whether that's work or fitness or whatever, I think is the most important part.
Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. We've already talked about consistency. Couple minutes in. There we go.
Love it.
We can sign off now.
Done. All done.
Be consistent, guys. No. But speaking of like transitions, I know you did some figure competitions back in the day, but now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a little bit more like paleo, almost carnivore, like lower carb bodybuilding, at least in the sphere now that I've been in, is very high carb, low fat, probably not carnivore. How did that like transition happen? What was it like back when you were competing? Yeah, give us a little deets there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually like I started out paleo, then I did some competing, and then I kind of went back to paleo. So I didn't really come from like a traditional bodybuilding background. I started with like CrossFit and powerlifting and then went into bodybuilding. So it's funny because I feel like sometimes those camps kind of like tease each other a little bit. It's like bodybuilders kind of like roll their eyes at CrossFitters and vice versa. And I'm like, I can roll my eyes at both of you because you're both silly, but you're also more alike than you are different. Like you just want to be strong and work out and look good. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But I will say I've stopped competing for a few years now. I'm not completely closed to the idea of doing it again. I just kind of told myself I would do it as long as I was continuing to like learn stuff and enjoy it and didn't have to do anything that compromised myself to make it to the next level. And so I was pretty successful, but I kind of hit a point where it's like, you sort of need to make this your entire life, and or start taking some like extracurricular supplements that you may not be comfortable with. Like I was sort of veering on that territory, and I'm like, all right, I'm kind of good to walk away now. But at a certain point, I may be willing to give it another shot with a different kind of diet protocol, because I'm all about experimenting and stuff. But when I did it, when I competed, I brought all of this paleo, ancestral health, whole foods knowledge with me to this experiment. I had a coach, of course, who was helping me through everything, and somebody that I researched and felt good about. And so it certainly wasn't low carb, but it also wasn't really particularly low fat, and it was more paleo than anything else. Like I would say it was like paleo-ish. I basically threw in some easy carb sources that wouldn't be considered paleo that I tolerated and enjoyed a lot. So I'd throw in rice and oatmeal basically, but the majority of it was vegetables, lean meats, sweet potato, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people these days, bodybuilding, competing, keto, some carnivore, not so many. And generally when people ask me about that, I say, you absolutely can. And some people do quite successfully, the same way that some people can be vegan and be quite healthy and thrive. It's sort of like you're making the job harder for yourself. So you kind of have to ask why, you know, like if you have some metabolic issues that make eating carbs unhealthy for you, then you may want to experiment with like a lower carb approach while bodybuilding. However, if you're working out a lot, if you're working out really high intensity, like I get a lot of like CrossFit women who are telling me they want to be like in ketosis at all times while doing CrossFit workouts every day. And I'm like, but why though? Like, you just don't need to, most of you,
That's
you're making
brutal.
it harder for
Yeah.
yourself. And instead it's like, just because you are saying, okay, I'm going to eat some carbs, doesn't mean you have to eat crappy carbs. Doesn't mean you have to eat 400 grams a day. You can still absolutely be low carb, compared to the standard American diet. It's just about figuring out like what balance works for you. Like my ideal kind of macro setup tends to be actually really quite balanced, like lower carb than standard American, but still like in the maybe 100 to 150 grams, much higher carb than the standard American woman is told to eat, but not like crazy keto amounts of fat. And then I keep my protein nice and high and consistent no matter what I'm doing. I think that's very important. But it's like playing around with what works for you, but just avoiding this like dogma and asking yourself the question why. Like if you are saying I have to be carnivore and I want to compete in bodybuilding, like I would ask you why those two things need to happen at the exact same time, because you're making both harder for yourself. Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, because I've definitely worked with women who come from a keto background, but they're like, I just want to put on more muscle. I feel like my workouts have plateaued. And I'm like, okay, well, are you open to adding back in some carbohydrate? And it's like a nerve-wracking conversation sometimes for people, because they think that keto is the only answer, or whatever diet is the only answer. But yeah, it's more like, well, what if you are making it harder for yourself? Some people are going to thrive that way. Other people, not so much.
Yeah. And I encourage people to look at stuff like this as tools in your toolbox versus an identity or a way of life, because keto can work really well temporarily, cyclically. It can work really well until it doesn't anymore. That doesn't mean that it's garbage. It doesn't mean that you suck. It just means that it worked for a while and now it's not working. And now we pivot, because your body's always changing. Your goals are always changing. Your body, it loves routine, but it also does need a little bit of sort of variety and stuff to make it adapt. So yeah, we get lots of women who are like, I went strict keto and I lost 50 pounds in a year and it was incredible. And now I've kind of plateaued and my energy's sort of garbage and I'm kind of miserable, but like, what do I do? Like, do I go from 20 grams of carbs a day to 10? And I'm like, no, eat some carbs. Just like figure it out. Like find some carbs that work
Have
for
that
you.
oatmeal. Yeah.
Yeah. And just, I think so often it's like, we just need permission to do the things that we already like in here in our heart and our minds know is the right thing to do. But we're just sold this like fear-based, do it exactly this way or else kind of approach. And so when we don't, we think we're failures, when instead the whole job here is for us to figure out what works individually for us. And it's going to look a little bit different for everybody.
I think, yeah, permission, like you just said, is a huge part of it, because I've done a lot of episodes now on more mindset in regards to fitness and nutrition. And I think that's a big sticking point, is we women feel like we have to meet all these expectations. And it's like, well, I can't slow down, but no one's telling you can't slow down except for you. You have to just give yourself that permission, the same way you should give yourself permission to experiment with a different strength program or a different way of eating. Like, try it. Try it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of been exploring this mindset thing myself in this course that my friend, I don't know if you're familiar with her, Rachel Gregory. She's
I've been on her podcast. I need to have her on. I haven't had her on yet. Yeah,
she's amazing.
She's the best. Yeah,
she and I have created this program together called Muscle Science for Women, and it's a hypertrophy and strength building program for women specifically. It's 3 months long. I don't want to like completely just shamelessly sell it here, but we're really excited because we're just like halfway through the first presentation of this course, and it's going like really well. The response has been amazing. There's tons of information that we're putting out, not only just the program where we're teaching people how to like read and understand and go through a strength building program, but also how to understand like how to fuel yourself to actually build muscle, because no one teaches women how to do this, and the mindset part of it and all these things. But what I'm getting at is the mindset component that I was talking about one of the things that I think is a little uncomfortable for women to hear, that we've been kind of delving into, is that our ego, just like men, we like roll our eyes at dudes in the gym who are like lifting weights that are way too heavy and they're going to kill themselves, right? Our egos get in the way too. It just doesn't manifest in the same way a lot of the time. And this is generalization. I'm not saying all women are like this, all men are like this. However, a lot of times women tend to underestimate themselves. They tend to be really hard on themselves. They tend to, like need this like permission or feel unsure or second guess themselves or feel insecure in the gym. Like all of these feelings, I think a lot of women have felt at some point in their like health or fitness journey, right? And I think one of the things for people to kind of consider is like, that's your ego too. Ego isn't just being like a macho, swaggy, like cocky idiot. It's also anything you tell yourself that is emotional, it's not fact-based, and it's hindering your ability to do what you want to do. So some people think ego just means I'm the best, I don't have anything to learn, there's nothing I can do here, I'm the best already. But ego is also when you say, everybody's looking at me, I look stupid, I should just get out of here, I can't do anything right, I'm just gonna fail this, like I messed up today, so I might as well give up. That's your ego too. It's just coming at you from a different direction. So a lot of times women think like, oh, I don't have an ego at all, like if anything, I have like, I need to work on my self-esteem. It's like, you do, but that's still your ego that's just telling you the stuff that is not real. And we need to learn to like understand that it's there and that we all have it and that there's nothing wrong with you for having these thoughts, but we need to mindfully figure out how to respond to them, how to dismiss them, how to, get past that and think more about, okay, what are the facts? What are the things that are going to push me forward? What's the real information here versus this emotion-based nonsense that I tell myself?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think a lot of women do kind of second guess themselves in that way. And what I've told clients who bring that up to me is like, instead of just trying to force it down, be like, hey, it's okay. Because that part of you is probably just trying to protect you. Like, especially if it's, I'm scared I'm going to make a fool of myself in the weight room. That's just your ego trying to be like, hey, you need to protect yourself. Like, get the F out of here. But if you can instead change it to like, you know what, I'm Caroline fucking Offenstein and I got this and I'm just going to stand here. Like, that's what I like to do. Drop an F-bomb and it always fires me up. So,
love it.
You can try that too. But yeah, very good point on the ego on both sides. And speaking of strength training, especially for females, I also come from a CrossFit background. So I kind of did CrossFit to bodybuilding too. Because my body was like, stop doing so much HIIT, girlfriend.
Stop doing CrossFit.
Stop. And so for me, like the myth of women get bulky easily was busted so early because while I was also under fueling, but like I just kind of got skinnier and kind of strong during CrossFit, but like I'm still trying to bulk 5 years later. So like, what are some myths that you hear from women going through your strength program? How can you debunk them?
My goodness. If I knew.
Where to start.
I knew. Yeah. Rachel and I talk about this a lot. We like kind of co-host each other's shows a lot. And we've like dedicated entire episodes to these myths, like the biggest one being the bulky thing. I mean, I think the other like related to that, one of the other similar ones, because I don't think I will, but I don't think we need to get into the science of how lifting weights will make you bulky is total BS, because it's just in total BS. There's nothing that backs that up. It's just so outdated and silly. It's usually said by people who are trying to sell a program that is teaching you something else, or it's said by like some dude who's an idiot and doesn't know any better, or it's said by a woman who's been taught that for 20 years but has never actually tried to lift weights. So like that's BS. But I think that one of the related kind of concepts that can be a little bit problematic goes to this like fueling thing and the idea of the ideal kind of body composition, what it means to be toned, what you have to do to have this like visible, attractive muscle, which again is going to be a range for some people. Like I might like a little bit more muscle than you, and she might like a little bit less. And, it's all whatever. But generally, those of us in fitness, when we think of body composition, we think like lean enough that you can see some musculature. You can see some curves and lines in your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the outline. You have a nice shape. You look athletic, right? So if we're just looking at that as like the general description of what fit and toned means, I think that a lot of women are under the misconception that you will achieve that toned look just by losing fat. And that is problematic because you do the wrong kind of workouts, you fuel yourself in the wrong way, and then you waste a lot of time doing the wrong thing to get the result that you want. What women don't understand a lot of the time is that having that lean, feminine, slightly muscular look requires a lot of work in the gym building muscle. And then you get rid of just enough fat that you can kind of see it, right? Whereas if you don't put any effort into building strength, building muscle, you can put all this work into losing body fat, but you still don't like the shape of your body. You're not filling out the jeans the way you want to. You don't have the like kind of muscly shoulders that you're hoping for, that you're looking at, because we aren't encouraged and taught that building a nice frame of healthy skeletal muscle is something to go for, is something to work for, is important. We're just taught look good, be skinny, lose weight. So people lose weight painstakingly by under eating and chronic cardio, and they fit into a size 4, or they, go way down in size and they're so much smaller, and they look at themselves in the mirror and they're like, this isn't what I signed up for. And people are really upset and disillusioned because they just were, again, fed the wrong information about what the goal is they're actually trying to achieve. So I would tell people 99% of the time that the main thing you want to do if you want to look toned is to fuel yourself properly and focus on building muscle, because you will absolutely stop before you get bulky. It'll never happen anyway, but like you'll see it coming, if you're like worried about looking like the Hulk.
If you have like epic testosterone levels naturally or something, I don't know.
Right. It's not going to happen overnight. So don't worry about that part. You just work to build muscle. And what's likely going to happen is over months and years, you will painstakingly put on a couple pounds of muscle that is going to shape your figure and your frame and give you that athletic shape that you love, and the functional fitness, of course, that we are all aspiring to. And then the healthy body fat that you have over that muscle is going to also change shape and look, maybe more appealing to you. Like I've said, one of the greatest things about working out consistently for like 15 years now is that when my body fat goes up and down a little bit, as it might throughout the year or whatever my goals are, I still kind of like the shape of my body more now than 10 years ago, because there's more muscle underneath filling it out, So I think it's that toned misconception people have a really hard time with, because they don't realize how crucial the muscle part of it is.
Well, yeah, and I think a big piece of that is patience, which nobody has in the fitness space, because I hear very often people are like, because I competed in bikini, and people are like, well, I want to look kind of like, have that bikini physique, but I don't want to, do all the work and get that super shredded. And I'm like, cool. But just so you know, I've been lifting weights for like 6 years consistently, and then dieted to get that look. You can't achieve that in 3 months. You will not see that muscle definition in 6 months, maybe a year of not dieting, right? Is kind of the other part of it. Like, yes, you can cut once in a while, I think, if you're like really working hard to push calories and put on muscle mass, but your body's not going to get to that quote unquote look like you work out physique if you're always hopping back into a diet phase. I think that's the other part of it that a lot of people miss, is like it's going to take twice as long if you're always hopping back into a diet phase.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we expect, this is another thing I talk about in like the mindset part, where I'm trying to like give my ladies some like tough love, where it's like nobody, like unless you're rebounding from a show, like people do not become overweight, out of shape, and chronically ill in 3 weeks. But we expect all of us to fix those problems in 3 weeks. All the programs, 21-day shred, whatever. Like we all expect to fix these problems that have taken us years and years and years to accumulate in weeks. Because again, that's what like the media influencers, people selling stuff try to tell you. Because to be fair, and I'm sure you know this, and this is my life, so I know it, it's very hard to sell the reality of what you need to do. There's no
Yeah.
sexy package to say, take care of yourself, go for lots of walks, eat properly, sleep. Like no one, like everyone
Yeah.
hears it and everyone knows, but they're not like, ooh, that sounds like a sexy plan. Everyone's like, ugh, I got to do that for like my whole life. And I'm like, yep, you do.
Yep. Yep.
Like for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you do. So yeah, I mean, we are very hard on ourselves, I think, but it's also like about just sort of aligning what you're doing with what your goals actually are, you know, and like digging down and spending some time and being really honest with yourself about what your goals are. Because if your goal is to get as shredded as a bikini competitor, if you're not competing, like, again, why? Not saying you don't have to, not saying it's a bad goal, but like, why? How are you going to feel when you get there? What are you going to do after? Because you can't stay there for very long. Most people can't safely, right? So maybe your goal would be actually to train and then diet down to like a 5 weeks out bikini competitor where you look real fit
Yeah.
and you look great and you aren't like killing yourself to stay at a lean level, and maybe you take some pictures and you stay there all summer so you can like run around in a bikini and feel really good, and then you figure out how to healthily kind of like maintain that sort of level, you know, and you'd be much happier. But maybe that's not as sexy a goal as I need to get down to 10% body fat or whatever, you know? So
Yeah.
just being really like honest and real with yourself about what your goals are, why they are that, and if it's really exactly what's in your kind of best interest, you know?
Yeah. And I think that comes back to experimenting, because even though some of these things that we're talking about are longer processes, they shouldn't like suck. Like if you really
Yes.
hate, if you're like, well, I've been doing this 4-day strength program, but like I hate it, well, then find a new program. Like talk to your coach or talk to a different coach about getting into a program that you like, because there's a million ways to put on muscle. It does not just have to be that bro 4-day upper lower, whatever it is, you know? So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of another part too. Like give yourself permission to figure it out for a little while.
Absolutely. We are all in, those of us who are, you know, anybody listening to this is probably in a very fortunate position that they have time to learn about health and wellness, and they have time to prioritize health and wellness. And
Mm-hmm.
we're all very lucky to be able to work out every day and use our bodies and like experiment with our fitness. And it doesn't always mean that it's fun, and it doesn't mean that every day is awesome. As you know, you've competed, like not every single moment of prepping for a show is awesome, but
Killer.
I was never complaining. I chose to do this. Like
Yeah.
if you don't like it, don't do it. No one's telling you you have to. You get to play with these things, and it doesn't mean that every minute has to be great. It just means that you get to choose, you get to pick what you want, and you know, to try to be grateful for the opportunities that you have, because there are lots of people probably who wish they were where you are.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really good point. And so, speaking of women lifting weights, with your guys' strength program, what were some of the things like you addressed? Or did you like notice, hey, a lot of women who are lifting weights, they're at least lifting, but they're not doing X, Y, and Z? Like, what were some of those holes that you guys tried to
Hmm.
fill?
Yeah, good question. I mean, so far, because the other thing about this program is that it's we do like sort of bi-weekly live kind of like Q&A chat
Oh, okay.
check-ins, so people can like ask questions in real time and talk about any challenges they're having or things that are going on. And I do find like maybe some of the things that come up are um, trying to balance strength or hypertrophy, because those are two different things, right? We're talking about, you could build, they don't have to be separate, but they're not the same thing. Hypertrophy is just building muscle, and strength building is getting stronger, right? So you can do one, you can prioritize one over the other. They don't have to happen at the same time necessarily. So one of the things that people I think are struggling with sometimes is trying to work on this goal of either strength or muscle building while still trying to do something else. And sometimes that might be endurance running, or
Oh,
that might be a different physical goal. And so it's hard to kind of parse that out sometimes because it's very individual. Generally speaking, I often say it's sort of the same as the argument of like, I want to try to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. It's like, kind of technically you can, but you're making it harder for yourself. Again, you might probably find that you have a more effective time and it all kind of gets done quicker in the long run if you focus on one thing and then you focus completely on the next thing. So again, I'm not saying that you absolutely cannot build muscle and lose fat. I'm just saying it's really hard and it may be more effective, like most bodybuilders do, to have periods of hypertrophy, muscle growth, followed by cutting periods of fat loss, right? Instead of trying to do these two competing things at the same time. So it's the same with like somebody wants to train for this like ultra endurance race, but they're also trying to build muscle at the same time. I'm like, that's gonna be pretty tough, and you could really burn yourself out. Can you put one on the back burner? Can you prioritize one over the other? And so we have to kind of talk about that. And sometimes you can make some concessions and be flexible, and sometimes you just have to pick one. You just have to prioritize. And so, yeah, a lot of people trying to kind of like do too much. It's that whole like more is more fallacy. It's like, okay, well, this program's 4 days a week. And then there's also a day of like hit or cardio built in. And then you get like an active rest day. But it's like, but if I'm feeling real good, can I do 2 a days? I'm like, geez, can you relax ever once?
I know.
Can you just relax? People can't.
I'm that person, but
oh my goodness. Listen,
but I've gotten a lot better.
Okay. And I feel like usually people look, there's nothing wrong with being type A and having a lot of energy and working hard. I'm with you on that. But I think maybe there's like a wisdom that comes with age. I don't know. I guess I have some women in their like 40s and 50s that in the program that still haven't figured this out yet. But like you cannot avoid recovery and downtime. If you don't respect it, it's gonna come up and bite you at some point. There's a whole section, I'm actually working on the presentation for it right now on recovery, where I like, it's like I'm trying to get through to people that I'm like, you're not special. We all think we're special. We all think we're the one who's like, sleep's important, but like, if I get crappy sleep, then, I'll figure it out. Or like, recovery is so important and like, you need to recover or you'll burn out. But like, not me, I'll do 2 a days until whenever. No, you're not different. Just recover, like treat your body well, like respect it. And I try to appeal to, I don't know what, by telling them like, this is the professional mindset. Like it's the amateur mindset that's like, balls to the wall. I got to keep going. Like never rest. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Professionals aren't doing that. They're resting and recovering because they know how crucial it is. And they want to avoid plateau and they want to avoid burnout. And a professional also knows that the recovery period is when your body is getting stronger. You are not getting stronger in the gym. You are breaking your body down in the gym. That's what you're doing. If you're working out effectively, you are ripping your muscle fibers and burning yourself out and depleting yourself. When you go home and you go for a nice walk and you eat enough food and you drink water and you have a good night's rest, your body is repairing itself. So if you skip that stuff because you're like hardcore, you're slowing your progress down. Mm-hmm. And people just, it's like people do not want to hear it. They'll be like, yes, that makes sense. And then turn around and do the exact opposite. I'm like, okay, all right, we'll see. Cause it kicks us all in the butt eventually.
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
It's tough.
And the same thing goes with, back to nutrition. Like if you're dieting over and over again, I should have taken a longer off season in 2020 after I won my pro card and I was just too excited. So I kept going and that like really downregulated my metabolism. And now I'm dealing with it now, taking a year off, which I needed a year off regardless, but I probably could have saved myself some heartache if I would have taken that break sooner, because just like you can't work out forever, you can't diet forever, because your body will be like, no. Because women,
why would you want to? Because food is so good.
People just, because another diet phase that's a good point. Like another diet phase isn't necessarily going to get you leaner. If your body is in a place that you've pushed it to the limit, going into another diet is only going to piss your body off more and make it harder to lose fat. Yeah. Because women, I think another big piece of this is like women are not the same as men. Like my husband does all kinds of crazy fasting stuff. Like he loves it. I will like lose my period if I do like some fasting experiment. It's like just like that. It's so fast. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Just because your husband might be doing 2-a-days or doing, you know, a 24-hour fast every single week doesn't mean that you're going to respond the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm coming in really hot on this podcast and talking about all kinds of things that women are doing wrong. And I hope that people listening understand that I do this absolutely from a place of love and trying to prioritize women's health, because we have been so misinformed for so long. And, you know, being in this industry, I listened to so many fitness bro podcasts because that's all that was out there. So yes. I'm glad that there are podcasts like yours and like mine where women who are interested in this stuff can actually learn from people that have the same physiology and have been through the things that they've been through. So anyway, that's just my caveat for anybody who's like, who's this sassy so-and-so who's got lots of opinions? But you know, this is kind of my like line of work.
And I just space for it. Yeah.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. But yes, I mean, there's also a section in this course about special considerations for women's physiology. And that goes from hormonal to the fact that we have many more sort of varying phases of life. Like men kind of have like puberty, adult, and then like old, right? Whereas women are like yes. puberty, like reproductive age, like perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, like all of these things that all come with their own unique hormonal and other factors, right? Everything from our skeletal structure. So the fact that our frame is shaped differently. So we have different angles of our hips and quads and our shoulders and our arms that could impact the types of exercises we do, the way we set up and carry and hold all of our muscles, and all of those things can be different. And of course, how we manage our food and how our body reacts to things like that. So we do have considerations, and it's again like another one of these like Pandora's box you open, where it's like it's kind of simple, but it's also super complicated, because I want women to know that when it comes down to purely to muscle, women's muscle is the same as men's muscle. It's the same fibers. Actually, we do have different like slow twitch. That's a whole thing. Okay, I'm getting complicated already. But muscle is muscle, yes. Right?
Yes.
So you don't need to work out with women's weights. You don't need to lift lower weights, higher reps because you're a girl. You know, like it is what it is. Your muscle is gonna react to a bicep curl the same way a man's is. The difference is men start out with a lot more muscle. So they're going to be stronger in a lot of cases. It may look like it's growing a lot faster because they generally have less fat, more muscle, broader shoulders, all these things. They have much higher testosterone. So their growth hormone is a lot more active and stronger than ours. However, we have some benefits too. Like estrogen is anti-catabolic. It like our female hormones let us work harder and longer than men. So that's why we, generally speaking, have like better workout endurance. So there's whole tests and studies on this that women can do like higher reps at a higher percentage of their 1 rep max than men can. We recover faster. That's because of estrogen. It's not all bad, right? Like our hormones and our cycles and all this like nightmare that we have to put up with, it's not all bad. We can use it to our advantage.
Totally.
But it's good to know that, yes, there are some differences. It doesn't make us worse or inferior or whatever. It's like understanding the differences so that we can work with them. But at the end of the day, as far as the muscle part goes, your muscle isn't girl muscle. It's muscle, and it needs to be stimulated by lifting weights the same as a dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and we got to get away from just like a pet peeve. If anyone calls a push-up from their knees a girl push-up, I'm like, you are getting a throat punch.
Get out of here.
Oh my
Get out of here.
Yes, I die when I hear that a little bit inside.
That is the worst.
Yes.
That's the worst.
Those are just modified push-ups, dude.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thanks. Get out of here.
But yes, I totally agree. Thank you for pointing that out too. And switching gears a little bit, I can't have you on this podcast without talking about organ meats. And I see your
Sweet.
beautiful cookbook behind you.
Here it is.
I've actually been eating organ meats for a while. I guess just because I always enjoyed, like, if you cook a turkey or a chicken at home, like, I just always really liked the heart and the liver and stuff. But lately, as my husband's been getting into hunting and we have more friends who hunt, they've been giving me their liver because they don't want it.
Nice.
So I'm always like sneaking it in stews and chilies. But people still think I'm crazy. So please tell us why you love organ meats and all about your cookbook.
Welcome to the club, the crazy club of eating organ meats. I'm sure listeners are probably like, wow, that was an interesting pivot. We're talking about organ meats now? Yikes.
Yes, we are.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, again, kind of going back to what I was talking about before about like me having an ancestral health background, I feel like whatever trends come and go, whatever terms or fads people don't like saying, at the end of the day, eating unprocessed food um, as close to nature's intent as possible makes common sense. And it would be really hard to convince me otherwise. Like, I don't think a lab can make a steak better than a cow can make a steak. And I think that there's something to be said for the fact that in the last 50 to 75 whatever years that we have drastically changed the nature of our food. We have drastically changed the nature of chronic disease and health. And I just, you know, we can speak about the nuance of plant-based versus animal-based and carbs and macros and all that stuff until the cows come home. But at the end of the day, like, eating real food is where it's at. Like, that, I think probably most groups can agree on, I would hope.
Yeah.
And so I feel, coming from a more animal-based, protein-forward, still whole foods approach, that especially in light of how controversial it seems to be to eat meat these days in a lot of circles, and a lot of the very valid concerns about factory farming and our impact on climate and our impact on the planet and sustainability and all of those things. I think it makes sense to have the conversation about how to be better consumers and how to make choices with our food that is going to be better for our health, better for the planet, better for the animals, better for everything, right? And that's something that if you follow some of the people that I love on Instagram, like Diana Rogers and Anya Fernald, and I can tell you about these folks if you don't know them, but it's like just talking about the nuance, right? Because it seems like online, everything's black or white. It's like, well, factory farming is bad, so let's never eat an animal again. Eat these tofu burgers, nightmares
that
from
drives
hell.
me insane.
Right? And it's like, no, that's not the answer. The way we've been eating for our entire history as humans is still good. It's the system that's kind of crappy, but we can make better choices. We can influence agriculture. We can influence the industry with our decisions and where we put our money and all of these things. So part of that for me is eating nose to tail. It's making full use of the animals that we are harvesting for our nourishment. And then it's also like, let's make the most out of the food that we're eating. And so, and this is something that has been, it's eating organs has kind of fallen out of favor in North America, like only recently and only in some groups across history and the entire planet. Most cultures still eat nose to tail like it's no big deal. And they eat all of these parts of the animal because that's just what they do. Maybe they're more closely connected with their culture. Maybe they have less privilege than us, where we can say, I'm just going to eat this one piece of the animal and nothing else. And then also I'm going to eat all this weird, like, processed stuff. Like, most people throughout the history have not had the option to be a vegan, for example. So it's really only a select group of us here in North America that think, I can eat this part of the animal, totally normal, no big deal, pick me up some chicken breasts, but this other part of the animal, what kind of psycho is going to eat that? It's like, it's the same animal.
It's crazy.
And it's a healthier part of it. So from a strictly like scientific perspective, organ meats are the most nutrient dense parts of the animal. And animals are the most nutrient dense things people can eat because they are extremely bioavailable to the human physiology. And they're just the highest concentration, organs generally are the highest concentration of all of the vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and amino acids that we benefit from when we eat meat are in higher concentrations and smaller amounts in organs. So no brainer, right? Except for the fact that it's fallen out of favor. It's become something that's extreme or weird. People have misconceptions that it's gross, that it's hard to make things with organs, that it's weird. And I'm trying to change that. So I wrote this book as someone who is not a French classically trained chef, someone who didn't even really grow up being very empowered to cook a lot. Again, I come from a bodybuilding background. I'm like, chicken, rice, like the end, you know, so I had to teach myself. But it was a very empowering process. And, you know, it really is that cliche of like, if I can do it, you can do it. Cause I don't have any special background in this. I just feel strongly about it. I'm passionate about it. I want other people to open their mind to it and try these things and experience the health benefits that I've experienced. So here are some pretty simple generally and palatable and family friendly and, you know, beginner friendly kind of recipes to just start getting more of this nutrient density into the foods you're already eating and into your diet.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And one thing you said that I wanted to kind of myth bust is with people who think like it's weird to eat organ meats or it's not healthy. One thing I have heard quite a few times is you can't eat the liver because that's what's detoxifying everything. And so every bad thing that the animal has been exposed to lives in the liver. Yeah. But how, correct me if I'm wrong, but how I kind of explain that is it is doing the processing. Your liver doesn't accumulate toxins and then hang on to them. It literally helps you, the organism's body, get them out. So it's giving you more of those tissues and that ability. Is that correct?
That's correct. So I like to say basically liver, kidney, these organs are filters, not sponges. So they do a fantastic job of filtering the toxins so that they can be excreted by the body through your urine, sweat, poop, whatever. Also, most of the time in most animals, in most cases, if you do have a toxic load from pesticides, antibiotics in humans, from the toxic things that we put on our body that we're exposed to every day, if we're smokers, whatever, that the majority of those toxins are actually stored in our body fat, which is true for animals and for humans. So that's why if you are kind of worried about the quality of the animals that you're eating, you do want to tend to go for leaner cuts because the fat is going to be the least healthy, possibly most problematic part of that animal, not the organs. And especially if you are able to source local, fresh, well-raised, you know, humanely harvested animals, the organs are going to be just as healthy and safe and delicious as the rest of the animal. But that's also why a lot of human beings who are suffering from chronic inflammation and toxicity issues, it is helpful if you're overweight to lose body fat because it is helping you release some of the toxins that you're storing in your body. They're not in your liver generally, they're in your fat.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And do you have like a butcher shop that you usually go to that has organ meats for you to buy?
Yeah, so I had to do a fair bit of research for this book because I included like everything from brains to tongue to, you know, tripe and everything in between. Some of the stuff is harder to find than others. I will tell people if you're open-minded and willing to try some new things, you'd be surprised how easy it is to find liver from like chicken, lamb, beef. Hearts are quite easy to find. Tongue is quite easy to find, but some of these other ones, they are tricky. You'd kind of need to search. And some options for people who are looking is absolutely, if you have a local butcher, great, go make friends with them, ask them what they have. Oftentimes, I don't know how many times I've gone to my local butcher and I asked for like crazy stuff, like, pig skin, like just the skin. And they're like, just take it. Like, weirdo, just take it. Like, because people don't ask for these things, right?
Yeah.
So make friends with your local butcher. If you're lucky to be near a farmer's market, like, and you've got some actual farmers coming in and selling direct, go ask them questions, talk to them, see if they have options or if they can bring in some organs for you. A lot of times they're giving them away or doing something with them just because there's not really any demand. And then there's also at this point some pretty decent online services that can get you really high quality meat, organ meat and otherwise, and ship across the country. So companies like US Wellness Meats is really great, Belcampo, and I can send you more resources. But yeah, so for places that if you are in a space where you have a hard time sourcing it right where you are, and then there's also like ethnic markets and supermarkets. So I found a lot of great stuff at like Asian supermarkets, African supermarkets, Middle Eastern supermarkets. Again, these cultures where they're like, yeah, we got tongue. What's the big deal? It's just like, it's there. So, and it's fun. Like that's an adventure. Like go to some new grocery stores that you don't normally go to like a butcher shop in another neighborhood that you haven't been to before and go check out what they have. Like that's part of the fun of this, is like experimenting and trying new things and opening your mind. And I talk about this a lot with the book. It sounds kind of corny, but I want people to eat more organ meats because it's healthy, but I also want people to explore this because I think food is a really low risk way for people to expand their mind a little bit and take risks and try things. And if you're willing to try a new culture's food, if you're willing to try something that you think is a little intimidating or scary, and then you have a great experience, or even if you don't, but you're like, all right, I tried it, cool, like I survived, like that was all right, you learn something new about yourself. And if you liked it, maybe you're more willing to visit a different place the next time you go on vacation. Maybe you're more willing to like read a book that you wouldn't normally read or something. And I just feel like that expands our lives and our experiences and like makes us kind of happier people if we're more willing to just open our eyes a little bit to things that are different. I think so often we're taught that things that are different are bad. If it's different, it's bad. It's weird, it's gross, it's different, I'm not used to it, it's unfamiliar, it's bad. And it doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes things that are different or new are the best. We just have to be willing to give them a shot.
Yeah. The theme of this episode is like experimentation. Just experiment with everything.
Just give it a try. I mean, listen, nobody knows what they're doing. Just give it a shot and have fun with it. Yeah.
Well, and I also really like the idea of, going to farmers markets, going to meet a butcher which I do think this has actually been studied. I would have to dig into it. But I think that the more like relationship you have with your food, the more that you're like, I took time with this. I know where this came from. I'm now cooking it. I'm going to now use it as fuel for my body. Mm-hmm. If you go into a meal like that, the food is definitely going to serve you more than if you're like eating in front of a screen, scarfing down something that came out of a box, and you feel guilty afterwards. That food is just not going to do your body anywhere near the same amount of good as if you like build this relationship and this knowledge behind what you're eating.
I completely agree. And I also believe, similar in that vein, that the more you invest in these things, the more you will get out of them too. Similar to like, I get that we all have to manage our resources and manage our time and be aware of these things. But like, if you are looking for a coach and one of them's $9 a month and one of them's $250 a month, like you can probably bet, if you're doing your research, like sometimes things are, when they're really cheap, there's a reason for it, right? And so, and there is proof, like there's lots of studies that are showing that like Americans generally, we spend less money on food as a percentage of our income and less time preparing food than generations past, right? So, with how convenient fast food is now, that we do kind of expect food to be like immediate and super cheap and taste really good and be really easy and just like be there right now when we need it. And again, I get it. People are busy. They have busy lives. You've got kids. Like you don't always want to spend 6 hours Martha Stewarding your meal or whatever. Totally get it. But I think that generally, if we can kind of look at the time that we spend searching out our food and coming up with recipes and prepping it and sitting down and enjoying it with people that we love and spending a little bit more money on food that's important and nourishing and really makes us feel good, that's good. Like, we should be trying to do that as much as we can in our life within reason. Like, I'm not telling anybody you need to only buy, grass-fed beef or nothing at all. I'm just saying that, like, yeah, just sort of resetting our priorities a little bit. Like, a lot of my income goes to food because I love it. Same. Right? I love it, but I care about what I put into my body, and it doesn't mean that I don't eat junk food sometimes, and I eat stuff that's easy or whatever. But generally speaking, it's something that is really important to me, and so I'm willing to put more time and energy and investment into it because I know I'm getting more back from that. So yeah.
Yeah, really good point. I could keep talking to you forever, but I totally want to respect your time. But before we kind of tell people where to find you, one question I like to ask everyone, since I also bring in manifestation to macros and muscle, what is something you are personally trying to bring in more of to your life, or like attract more or manifest personally?
It's a really good question. Also, I love the name of your podcast, by the way. It's like all the important things.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, so let's see here. I would say maybe I'm thinking a lot about like my business, because in the last year with the pandemic, that was really all I could focus on because I couldn't see friends or do fun things or travel. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll double down and like write some cookbooks and like try to expand my business. And so one of the things that I would love to manifest for myself over the next year is creating some processes so that I can work a little bit smarter and less hard. Like, when you work for yourself, it's like you constantly have to be, creating, working, putting stuff out there. You don't get a steady paycheck. No one's paying your pension for you. You need to like constantly be working. And that's great. And I love it. And I love being rewarded for the work that I do. But if I can start getting to a point where I can just have a little bit of a better balance. Like, when was the last time I took vacation? I don't know. What's vacation? I don't know what that is. So I would love to, work for myself and be comfortable with that and take a bit more time so that when I'm working. When I'm not, I'm like heavy duty vacation mode. That's what I want to try to manifest for myself this year.
Amen. And that's another piece of that permission, I think, too, is that that's a myth that I try to bust for myself all the time, is you do not have to work hard. There does not have to be a struggle to make money. I heard someone say the other day, money is the easiest thing to make. And I'm like, new mantra. I don't have to work hard.
All right.
I can receive.
Yes. I like that. I like it.
Yes.
It's true though, because like literally like in the last the last year of the pandemic, I literally have had to, and I didn't do this for like 8 months. And now in the last couple of months, I will not work on the weekends. And it feels like I'm giving myself this crazy break. And again, this isn't like, woe is me. Like, my life is great. It's fine. Like I'm not pitying myself, but like for me to, take a weekend off and not work, and like, I still feel a little bit weird about it. And I don't want to feel weird about it.
Yeah.
I want to feel like it's the damn weekend. I'm not doing work. Okay. So if I can get to that point, then I feel good about it.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And on that note, so where can people connect with you, learn more, support your business, buy your cookbook?
Yeah, so the cookbook is called It Takes Guts, and you can get it anywhere. So Barnes & Noble, Amazon, wherever you feel comfortable buying. And you can also get it on my website, which is just my name, ashleighvanhouten.com. I have all of my programs and consultations and swag and everything that I offer on the website. So you can check it out there. You can connect with me there. And I'm definitely the most available online on Instagram at The Muscle Maven. And you can check out my podcast too, which is Muscle Maven Radio.
Amazing. Everyone go follow Ashleigh. She has some good shit on her Instagram.
I try my best.
Thank you for being here, and we'll catch you guys soon.
Thanks, Caroline.
Do you feel energized and refreshed now? I hope this episode gave you a little boost to get out there and start manifesting your fittest, healthiest life. If you loved it, please help me out by writing a review and sharing this episode to your story. And seriously, just thank you so much for being here. For daily updates of what I've got going on and to connect further, be sure to follow me on Instagram and head over to ccowellness.com to learn more about my one-on-one coaching and find additional resources there, including my Goddess's Guide to Macros ebook, plus a few freebies. And remember, you are strong, you are capable of achieving anything you desire, and you are worthy of all your wildest dreams.